Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation G VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. Lunala just claimed its very first regional championship here in the Regulation G format, and as soon as I saw it win, I knew I had to cover it. Behzad Muntazir won the Vancouver VGC Regional Championships this past weekend using Lunala, and Lunala has been a Pokemon that's been very overlooked in this format. It is generally not nearly as popular as other restricted Pokemon like the Calyrexes, Miraidon, Kyogre, Groudon, Koraidon, and Terrapagos, as well as Zamazenta, but it is really powerful when utilized correctly, and this set is really cool in particular. You've got Meteor, Beam plus Power Herb, you've got Expanding Force supported by Indeedee as well. People have generally used Lunala with Calm Mind and Leftovers in this format, and so this just unlocks a new offensive dimension to Lunala, and the team is also really well supported by powerful Pokemon like Fire Ogerpon, Landorus, as well as Roaring Moon. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. You may have noticed that I have not posted Road to Ranked in a while, and that's because I'm getting used to moving to a new city and adjusting to a new job as well, but I really get so much fulfillment from making content for all of you, and so it's really good to be back, and I've got a lot more content in store for you in the upcoming weeks. But thanks for your patience as always. Thank you for tuning into these videos. It really means the world to me, and if you do enjoy, it would really mean a lot to me if you leave a like on the video or subscribe to the channel. But let's get started. For some quick context, this team won the Vancouver Regional Championships, which took place in the beginning of March 2025. This tournament had over 400 players competing in it, and Behzad Muntazir won the entire tournament, going 9-1 in Swiss and obviously undefeated in Top Cut. He brought one of the most unique teams into this tournament featuring Lunala, and the finals, by the way, was just an absolute blast to watch. Alejandro also had an incredible tournament run, and I think part of what led to both of these players' success were kind of mastery using a team that people probably don't have as much experience fighting against, right? On one hand, you have a hard Trick Room team, and on the other hand, you have Lunala plus Indeedee. And so we're at a time right now in the format where there's so many different viable teams and strategies, and it feels like, you know, every new tournament, there is a new team that's kind of joining the ranks of the established compositions. And so these are definitely teams that you'll have to respect coming out of this tournament. But Lunala, in general, as you can see here, is incredibly underplayed. There was no other player in Top Cut of this tournament with Lunala, and there was only one other Lunala in day 2 of this tournament. And this Lunala was actually a Calm Mindset, which is how people historically have used Lunala in this format. So Behzad really figured out something special here with his Lunala. What's also really interesting is that 4 of the 6 Pokemon on Behzad's team, and Landorus, Urshifu, Fire Ogerpon, and Roaring Moon, actually won the San Antonio Regional Championships just a couple of weeks ago. And so these Pokemon are just really good in this format. You can have an Ice Rider here, but I think Lunala plus Indeedee just unlocks a new way to play the game. And once again, people have very little experience fighting against this. So huge congratulations to Behzad for figuring out something very underutilized in this format and claiming a regional championship with it. Breaking down the team, the first Pokemon we have to talk about is Lunala. By the way, rental code is right up there if you want to try out the team yourselves, as well as Behzad's Twitter. And question of the day, I want to know what's one restricted set you think is currently being slept on. We've now seen Life Orb Koraidon as well as Power Herb Lunala win the last 2 majors, so I feel like there's still got to be some undiscovered spice out there that people might be sleeping on. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Or it could just be a restricted Pokemon that people might be sleeping on. Lunala is a Pokemon that has won some of the biggest tournaments in Pokemon. It's won the World Championships before. It actually won Vancouver Regionals back in 2022 as well. And so it's really cool to see it shine once again. This is a offensive Lunala set. You've got Power Herb with Meteor Beam, which allows you to just quickly be able to potentially pick up one-hit knockouts onto Pokemon like Incineroar, for example. And then once you boost up Lunala, Expanding Force and Moongeist Beam just do so much damage, especially with helping hand support from Indeedee. This Lunala is designed to just maximize its damage output, so you're modest max special attack, and you've got a good amount of investment in HP and defense as well. This is going to be Water Terra, and Water Terra is really handy, especially into Calyrex Ice Rider, Water Urshifu, Kyogre, just to name a couple of examples. Shadow Shield is an incredible ability because it allows you to take reduced damage when you're at full HP, so Lunala is a Pokemon that can honestly stay on the field for a really long time. Now, this Lunala doesn't have Wide Guard, it doesn't have Protect either, but because you have the Shadow Shield, because you have the Water Terra, because you have double redirection with Indeedee and Ogerpon, it can actually stay on the field and sustain for a really long time, and of course, dish out massive amounts of damage. Now, Trick Room is a move that you're often going to be clicking. With Indeedee and Lunala, you can often just go for a pretty safe follow me Trick Room. If the Indeedee faints, you get a free switch in into one of like Landorus, Ogerpon, and Urshifu, and then Urshifu or any of those plus Lunala under Trick Room can just be really, really threatening. So this is going to be one of your go-to leads. This entity is fairly standard. The main thing to call out here is that you are Rocky Helmet and you actually aren't 31 speed IV, so you're a little bit slower, which can give you the edge under Trick Room against opposing entities and Pokemon in that speed range and base 85 speed, for example. Otherwise, the main thing here is that you've got Alluring Voice, which allows you to actually deal decent damage as a single target fairy type attack. And the Rocky Helmet here, really good into physical attackers, right? So Water Urshifu, obviously. But with Fairy Terra, I actually find that this is a good solution into dark type Pokemon, so Chimpao as well as Dark Urshifu, for example. Those are often focus sashed, and so with Fairy Terra Rocky Helmet, you can basically chip them away as they use a physical attack into you, and then just Alluring Voice onto them for a ton of damage as well. So I think that's pretty cool. So Indeedee and Lunala, that's one of your go-to leads with this team, and it really felt unbeatable when we saw it on stream this weekend. The remaining team actually resembles San Antonio's winning team, which I featured a couple of weeks ago, built by Shilling and Justin Tang. And a lot of the concepts are similar. You've got super bulky Landorus, super bulky Ogerpon, Urshifu here, as well as the Roaring Moon. I think basically what some of the top teams recently have done a really good job of is saying, look, I'm using Pokemon that aren't restricted Pokemon, but play like restricted Pokemon. Like, Landorus just does so much damage. And if you watch the VODs from Vancouver Regionals, there was one set, I think it was in top 4, where Landorus, it just felt like the actual restricted Pokemon. Like, Lunala fainted on the first turn of both games, and then Landorus came out and just was able to Earth Power and Sandstone Storm everything and knock everything out. Landorus has an exceptional matchup, of course, into Miraidon, which, of course, is still one of the top restricted Pokemon today. This is a super bulky Landorus. It's very specially defensive, as you can see here. You actually have no speed investment, which is kind of crazy because normally people run max speed, max special attack. So this is even bulkier than the Landorus that won San Antonio Regionals. But this, of course, allows you to sustain for a much longer time and makes Landorus a much more valuable pick into special attackers that normally think they'll be able to just demolish Landorus. You've got Fire Ogerpon here. This is the classic near max HP, max defense set. Jolly Nature here. And so this Ogerpon is awesome because it can still deal a lot of damage when you go for Terra, but it's also just a really solid defensive option. I often find myself bringing this into, for example, the Calyrex Ice Rider matchup because you can take Glacial Lance so well. Water Urshifu on this team is very standard. It's mainly going to be Stellar Terra to call out here, as well as the Taunt, rather than something like Water Terra. You've got Focus Sash here rather than Mystic Water as well, so it allows you to just sustain for a little bit longer with Urshifu. And Taunt is a really nice move to stop potential setup, to stop Trick Room. It is just a move that I find has a lot of value in a lot of different matchups, and I think it fits on this team even better because, like, you already have Indeedee on the team, which is going to block your own Aqua Jet with Psychic Terrain, so I think it makes more sense to run something like Taunt rather than Aqua Jet. Roaring Moon is the final Pokemon, and this is actually a really important piece for the Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup, because otherwise Shadow Rider is obviously quite good into Lunala, and it can just Astral Barrage and do a ton of damage into everything. Roaring Moon, of course, allows you to resist Astral Barrage, you're immune to Expanding Forces, you pressure knockoff immediately into Shadow Rider. Flying Terra Acrobatics, of course, really powerful into things like a Moongeist or Rillaboom, and the general idea behind this team is you can utilize it under Tailwind or Trick Room. The Pokemon are fast enough where under Tailwind you will be basically outspeeding everything that you'll go up against, but they're also slow enough where if you're going up against like the classic faster Pokemon in the format, like your Fluttermanes and your Scarf Urshifus or your Koraidons or your Miraidons, then Trick Room becomes really effective. So I think a lot of the best teams in this format do a really good job of having both Tailwind and Trick Room available and having two different speed control modes to play towards, and that certainly is the case with this team. So I would highly recommend just watching the games from Vancouver Regionals to see how this team was played, but some of my favorite leads after experimenting around a little bit with it include Indeedee plus Lunala. I think Roaring Moon plus any offense is always strong. Like you could go Roaring Moon, Urshifu, Ogerpon, Landorus, or Lunala. It just kind of depends on what your opponent has on their team. But I've even gone with Roaring Moon Indeedee. This is kind of like a weird combo, but I think it works when you can kind of scare your opponent into thinking you'll either set up Tailwind or Trick Room, and it just makes them play a guessing game for what means of speed control you'll want to go for. And so, yeah. But overall, I think a lot of the times it's about like using Lunala to do massive amounts of damage and then using redirection from Indeedee and Ogerpon to protect your other attackers in like Landorus and Urshifu, for example. So in terms of things to watch out for, naturally with Lunala, dark type Pokemon or dark Terras can be a little bit scary. Now, normally the way you can deal with those include Meteor Beam, right? So you can go for something like Helping Hand Meteor Beam, but this is just kind of a one-time use attack. And so a good timing of a dark Terra or switching in a dark type Pokemon, I think can be scary. Lunala also, of course, does not love getting its special attack stat drop because it really likes getting the power herb boost and then just doing a lot of damage. So I played against some teams that had Snarl, and that was really disruptive for Lunala. I played against a couple of Ting Lus, and I think that's actually probably single-handedly the worst non-restricted Pokemon you could go up against for Indeedee plus Lunala, because you basically just do no damage, and Ting Lu can have so many Dark-type attacks. It can Runation you, it can Snarl you, it can Throat Chop you, and so that's an example of a Pokemon you could use to specifically shut this combination down. Otherwise, yeah, dropping its special attack is valuable, Dark Terra is really valuable, and then Wide Guard can be pretty good as well to stop the expanding force if the terrain is up. One other call out is that Water Terra is really good defensively on Lunala, but if you're able to bait it out, then you can use super effective damage, right? For example, I have played against Calyrex Ice Rider teams where I Water Terra to get around Glacial Lands, but then they have Rock Ogerpon, they have Raging Bolt in the back, and this Lunala can't protect, and so that's something you can take advantage of as well. Obviously, you have double redirection on this team, but I've had games where it's like the redirection user gets knocked out, the same turn Lunala is left exposed to a super effective attack, and that can be pretty scary. Indeedee obviously doesn't love going up against like opposing terrain control. The upside for Indeedee is that it is going to be fairly slow, so you can lead it often and win the terrain war. But of course, if your opponent keeps their terrain in the back and then brings it out, that can be a little bit disruptive as well. And neither of these Pokemon can protect, and that's something your opponents can take advantage of. Otherwise, some things to watch out for. Your Landorus here is going to be super slow relative to your normal Landoruses. The bulk is awesome, but that's also something your opponents can take advantage of, right? So if you're up against a normal traditional water Urshifu, keep in mind that you will just be threatened by Surging Strikes KOing you before you move. Ogerpon here is not as offensive. You only have 12 attack EV, so I had one game where Ivy Cudgel in Sun did not knock out Calyrex Ice Rider, so that's something you have to be careful about, right? You're going to just do a lot less damage than your normal Ogerpons, and you're going to be a lot slower than your normal Ogerpons as well, right? So this can actually be handy in matchups because you can utilize it under Trick Room, but for example, be cautious because if you go up against things that are max speed in like the base, 100 to 110 speed range, that can be really spooky, right? Because you're just threatened by potentially getting knocked out. Urshifu here, generally I would say you just have to worry about Rocky Helmet in particular, doesn't feel really good. And then Roaring Moon's a Pokemon that feels either incredible in matchups or often sometimes just completely useless. I think Moon really doesn't like going up against Pokemon that threaten it for super effective damage, so Fairy types or Fairy Terras, for example, can be disruptive. Strong fighting type Pokemon like Iron Hands, for example, can be scary because you don't take that much damage from acrobatics, and then Iron Hands threatens Moon with a knockout both before as well as after Terra. So these are just a couple of small things that I wanted to call out. Calyrex, Raging Bolt, Urshifu, Pelly, and Moongeist here. So this speaks to like one of the scary things, which is using like I get baited into water tearing with Lunala, and then Raging Bolt can hit me for super effective. Into Ice Rider, you can go Indeedee, or sorry, Lunala Ursh or Lunala Indeedee. What's wrong with Lunala Indeedee here? Ursh is just better if they lead Ice Rider. I might actually go with Landorus here because I'm pretty worried about Raging Bolt. But then it makes me really Moongeist weak by not bringing Fire Ogerpon. Fire Ogerpon just doesn't feel great when you have Pelipper on the opposing side, but it is like near max HP, max defense, so it helps against Glacial Lances. If I'm my opponent and I want to beat Lunala plus Indeedee, what would I lead? Could go Incin. I think Lunala Indeedee feels decent here, honestly. Urshifu. It's the Raging Bolt that really scares me here. I'm gonna go Fire Ogerpon still. I think that the problem is because it's like I want to Water Terra with Calyrex against Calyrex with Lunala most of the time. If I can't Terra Landorus, it's just going to get demolished by Glacial Lands, and that's the problem for me here. Incin Calyrex. It's fine. I think I'm just going to go Helping Hand Meteor Beam turn 1. Onto Incin, maybe? Ursh Ogerpon. I could Terra here, but I'm hesitant to because if I do, Raging Bolt can take advantage of it. If I eat up a Glacial Lance that's stronger here on the first time, so be it. It means that you are not setting up Trick Room. Okay, there's Helping Hand. Beautiful. Should just pop Instant as long as we don't miss. This would be a really bad miss. Alright, Lunala, don't let us down, please. Nice. That's a one-hit KO. Sweet. Yeah, I felt okay with this play because it's like Incineroar almost never carries Protect, right? And so it's like guaranteed damage into that slot. What is Ice Rider gonna do? Either Glacial Lands to do some damage to both, or Trick Room, and both are fine. And yeah, this is why I didn't Terra, because now they have Raging Bolt out. Okay. I have Helping Hand Moongeist Beam now into Calyrex. I think Calyrex probably Terras. I'm actually leaning towards Helping Hand Expanding Force here. That feels pretty strong. Okay. Here's the Terra. I'm hoping it's Ice Rider Terraing, because obviously you're worried about Moongeist Beam. Terra into Fairy or Water. Beautiful. Great, great, great. Okay. It's been a perfect turn 1 and turn 2, I would say. Doesn't get any better than this. And I still have Terra available as well, so I feel really good. So satisfying. Helping Hand +1 Expanding Force. That doesn't feel right. The fact that you can one-shot a Calyrex Ice Rider from that is insane. My opponent actually had Snarl as well, so if they had led Instant Raging Bolt, they would have been able to threaten me a lot more. You could Terra your Instant and Snarl on turn 1, because I think Snarl is actually one of the biggest issues to run into, but now we just Helping Hand Expanding Force again. Like, we just win the game in 3 turns. That was so satisfying. Let's go. If you're on my opponent's side, basically what you want to do is bait out the Meteor Beam and not sacrifice Incineroar. So turn 1, my opponent could have switched Instant into a Moongeist protected Calyrex Ice Rider, or just Trick Roomed immediately. You could also lead Raging Bolt with the Moongeist and go like protect Snarl on turn 1, for example. Because Assault's Raging Bolt legitimately is actually one of the worst sets for us to run into, like, because you decrease our special attack and we don't do a lot of damage. But in this case, they didn't get a Snarl off before I got my +1 boost, and then I just do so much damage with Helping Hand Expanding Force. And I figured they would be Assault Vest because we didn't see a booster energy from the Raging Bolt. Otherwise, it's normally going to be Life Orb maybe. But yeah, and then my opponent was obviously felt a little pressure to Terra with the Ice Rider out of fear of Helping Hand plus Moongeist Beam, but the Expanding Force just wins the game on the spot there. So super, super satisfying. But yeah, it's not like it's just unwinnable from the opposing side. It just worked out perfectly. Like, I kind of called what they were going to do turn 1 and turn 2. And basically, I was going for these plays saying even if you don't go for like a Protect on Ice Rider, it's still fine. Even if you don't Terra your Ice Rider, it's still fine, right? Because Helping Hand plus Expanding Force still does so much damage to both Pokemon, and I've still got 2 Pokemon waiting in the back, right? One being that Fire Ogerpon, which should have a really good matchup from there on outwards, but things just played out even better. Hyper Offense Zacian. Very cool. Zacian, Ursh, Landorus, Waterpon, Tornadus, Champao. If we get Trick Room up, we should be in okay shape. Champao's the main concern here, so Fairy Terra NDD I think is probably a bring. I think the main debate is whether or not I want Urshifu. The thing is, Urshifu looks really good, but the Water Ogerpon invalidates it a good bit. I don't mind NDD Lunala lead. Don't like Roaring Moon in this matchup. I think I like Landorus here. So then it's between Firepon and Urshifu. I think I might still go Urshifu because the reality is Urshifu under Trick Room can be very potent into my opponent's team. But they're a really high-ranked Zacian player, so this is cool. What are the possible leads they could go with? Champao Zama, Champao Urshifu, Torn Lando, Torn Ursh, Torn Zama, Torn Waterpon, Waterpon Zacian. A lot of possible ones I just listed off. Torn with anything can be scary. Zacian Champao is, I think, very offensive. Does NDD survive Behemoth Blade then is the question. Like, we are max HP, max defense, so even with an attack boost and Sword of Rune, I think we might survive, which would be huge. Because if they go Zacian Champao, I could go Follow Me Trick Room. It's Ursh Champao. That's also fine. I think I'm okay just going Follow Me Trick Room here. Yeah. This is where Rocky Helmet's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. Because it breaks Focus Sash on Champao. Okay, Ursh protects, that's fine. I wonder if it's Ice Spinner here. People have been using Ice Spinner more frequently. It's good until the Miraidon matchup. Nah. I think it's fine. It's a lot of damage. Wow. Goes up. Could have been a Meteor Beam there, but I think it's fine. You can Follow Me Meteor Beam now. Question is, how much do I value getting terrain back up? I actually think it's fine that it's gone now. I'm just not... I'm worried about, like, Urshifu surviving Expanding Force. I could always Helping Hand Water Terra. I actually kind of like that. Helping Hand, Water Terra, Expanding Force. Because I think Champao here wants to protect or switch. Or it might Sucker Punch, but the Terra helps around this. If Champao protects and we get this, like Urshifu feints, I'm just assuming it's Sash on the Champao, because otherwise protect on Ursh there doesn't feel necessary. On turn 1. We get Helping Hand off. Hoping to see Champao protect, but it's also fine if it doesn't. Nice. Good. I'm just making this play because it's like I knew that Urshifu protected last turn, right? So it's like I get this guaranteed damage off. Yeah, it's a KO. Sweet. I mean, it's a crit, but you're not Assault Vested there. With Helping Hand boost, I'm confident that KOs with max special attack on Lunala. I was wondering if I even needed the Helping Hand, honestly. But the Water Terra here was just a cover for Champao not attacking, or sorry, not tearing this turn. Or not protecting. Zacian comes out. It's a pretty free Follow Me Meteor Beam right now, I think. The question is whether or not I actually need to Follow Me, but I think the answer should be yes in case they try to Sucker Punch me. And with what I have in the back, things are looking decent. It's mainly fear of missing Meteor Beam. But I don't think there's any other move to go for here. So this blocks potential Sucker Punch if they go for it. We'll knock out Champao. Lunala will still have shield up. Beautiful. They Sucker Punch. This has been perfect, honestly. Meteor Beam comes out. Please don't miss. We missed. Well, that is one of the weaknesses, unfortunately, of using the Lunala, so it's going to happen. I think we were in a super commanding position without it. I think it's honestly still fine-ish, but that's a big miss. Please don't tell me the game is disconnecting. I really want to play this. Please don't disconnect. Oh, hang in there, Scarlet and Violet. I think it's about to crash. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay. So I can go Ursh or Lando. I mean, Lando's Sandsear is just so strong here. But Ursh gets guaranteed damage through Protect. Problem is they could Sucker Ursh, double up into it. I think I'm going to go Landorus here. I'm just a little bit worried because there's more moves to potentially miss now. This could easily protect. It also could Terra. I could just Earth Power here. The problem is they might switch into Torn or Lando. I'm thinking I Sanseer Storm here because I have Terra on Lunala. I go for Moongeist Beam into Chien-Pao. Yep. Torn or Lando. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Now I can Earth Power Zacian. Still okay, still okay. I wonder if this one-shots. This max special attack. One-shot would be huge. Yeah, you're not Sash because it's on Chien-Pao. It just lived on one. Whoa. Oh, jeez. Last turn of Trick Room. I don't have Aqua Jet. On Ursh. If that was a knockout, then we can just double up onto Zacian to cover for Terra. I think Meteor Beam hitting definitely would have won us the game as well. It's like both Meteor Beam missing and the 1 HP survival has been a little unfortunate, but it's okay. I could have doubled up maybe in that turn. I do think you probably Terra Zacian now, and then you Bleak Wind Storm. Bleak Wind's not that scary, though. So I double up onto Zacian, I think. What Terra is it going to be? Ground? Terra Flying would be awful for me. Okay, Water is fine. I think we get this knockout anyway. Moongeist Beam. That almost just KO'd. Wow. +1 Moongeist Beam is a ridiculous attack. It's so powerful. Okay, bye-bye doggy. I eat up a Bleak Wind now. They miss? Oh, Lunala was the one we'd hope to miss. It doesn't really actually matter on Landorus, I think, but it's fine. Speed drop. Trick Room expires. If we knock out Tornadus, Urshifu should win 1v1 against Chien-Pao. This is where if we had Aqua Jet, this would be a guaranteed win because you just Aqua Jet Tornadus, but we don't, unfortunately. I think I just attack here with Landorus. I think I attack with both, honestly. Earth Power here and Moongeist Beam. If they're Protect Tornadus, this is what it loses to. Nice, they just spinner. Yeah, this is fine. We're good. Lunala was so clutch for us in this, even though it missed the Meteor Beam. Like, +1 Moongeist Beams just did so much damage. Bleak Wind actually misses here, but it wouldn't matter because you're never getting a knockout there, I don't think. You'd have to crit it, and even with the crit, I don't think it's enough. But the idea here is I don't, like... Of course I could protect Landorus or switch into Urshifu. If I switch into Ursh, though, I break my Sash and they Bleak Wind me. That's a bad play. If I protect, I risk them doubling up into the Lunala slot. And the main thing is I built a huge lead in this game just off turn 1 and turn 2. So I knew that I could afford to take trades, right? Oh, it's actually just close combat here. No reason to surging. Trick Room. Yeah. Like, Zacian was just neutralized in this game. And I think the main thing here is if we set up Trick Room, they just can't do very much, right? So I think this is an example of a game where even though we missed a crucial Meteor Beam, the +1 boost was enough for us to dish out massive amounts of damage. It would have been nice to actually get the knockout onto both Zacian and Tornadus with it, but it was fine. I think the reality is that, like, Trick Room was really good. And I think I'm really glad to showcase this game for a couple of reasons. Like, Indeedee and Lunala being brought into Chien-Pao seems kind of crazy, but with Indeedee being max HP, max defense, and the Rocky Helmet's a really, really big deal in breaking those focus ashes. And then, yeah, like, having Helping Hand support is awesome as well. So, yeah, I think, like, turn 2 just was really good, but even if they had attacked into me, it still would have been fine. And I think Zacian is just kind of hard to utilize against a Water Terra Lunala, especially when Trick Room is set up. All right, Calyrex Shadow Rider here with Chiyu Raging Bolt, which I think can be pretty scary. With a team like this, the goal should be to prioritize setting up Trick Room and then playing from there. We could actually... So, Indeedee Roaring Moon ends up being a lead that I go with often into these teams. Because you pressure Trick Room and theoretically Tailwind with Lando and Lunala in the back. So part of me that wants to bring Fire Ogerpon. It's not really that great into Chi-Yu or Bolt. Yeah, let's try this. So my general idea here is to go for, if with Indeedee and Roaring Moon, I threaten with a lot of different things. I could go Helping Hand Acrobatics, for example, on a Tornadus. If I've had opponents lead like Tornadus Calyrex while playing with this team. So if they lead Tornadus Calyrex, like they can protect Calyrex, and then Helping Hand Acro to just knock out means then I can actually set up Tailwind and play the game using a Tailwind mode instead. If they don't lead Tornadus, we can think about just setting up... Well, I mean, I can think about setting up Trick Room with or without Tornadus, but I could always like just set up Trick Room on turn 1. The main thing to worry about is if I set up Trick Room and then neither Indeedee nor Calyrex, or neither Indeedee nor Roaring Moon gets knocked out by the Calyrex, because then you don't have very much offense. And if you've set up Trick Room, but they protect and they don't Tailwind, it can be kind of awkward. But it's going to be Chi-Yu plus Calyrex. Okay. I am leaning towards Helping Hand Acrobatics on Chi-Yu turn 1. I don't know if that knocks out without Terroring, though. So I might go Flying Terra, Helping Hand Acro. Because I think here, Calyrex would want to protect, probably, or Terra. We've got Lando Lunala in the back. I'm a little bit worried about Sash Chi-Yu. That would be really bad. But I didn't want to lead Lunala into this, as you can see. I could Tailwind here. Don't love that, though. I think I'm going to go Helping Hand Flying Terra Acro turn 1. Okay. Calyrex switches. That's fine. Into Tornadus. That is A-okay with me. Does Chi-Yu protect? Does it have Focus Sash? The ideal outcome is neither, and we just one-shot it as it tries to snarl us. But Roaring Moon exists on this team for the Shadow Rider matchup, and you're seeing it come out now. Okay, nice. No Protect, no Terra, no Sash. Excellent. Good turn 1. We just eliminated what I think is the biggest problem Pokemon for Indeedee Lunala. Ogerpon comes out now. This feels like it should be just a Trick Room setup. I think I'm happy to go Trick Room and Acrobatics here, because I could see them going Bleak Wind, Ivy Cudgel into Indeedee. I don't care if you knock out Roaring Moon if it means getting Lunala out for free. Yep, they did not go for Tailwind. We don't one-shot, but that's fine. It's Rocky Helmet. Oh, they went for Icy Wind. Cool. That works for me. And Cudgel. I think this play would have worked if I didn't have booster energy, but I guess they didn't want to set up Tailwind. Well, that would make sense. It would also cover for a Lunala switch in, but I'll take this outcome at the end of the day. Trick Room gets set up now, and now we just get to bring Lunala out. I think with Lunala out, the main question is... if you're my opponent, you should just protect with this. Right? I have so many turns of Trick Room to work with. I think I'm okay going Alluring Voice here. And I'm leaning towards Meteor Beam just to give me a stronger Expanding Force next turn. Spiky, yeah. I guess the one risk here is I could actually miss Meteor Beam into Tornadus. Wait, actually, no, missing would be fine. Yeah, because then you don't get a free switch it into Calyrex. And then, because you already protected Ogerpon, next turn I can just Expanding Force. Or Moongeist Beam, even. I actually wouldn't have even, yeah, like a miss would have been okay there. But we get the knockout, which means now you bring out your Calyrex. And with Roar, like in DD, you can't just Astral Barrage spam everything, which is a really big deal as well. We had 3 turns of Trick Room left. If I had Ursh in the end game, then I think I had a guaranteed win here. So maybe consider bringing Ursh in the future. I just, with Bolt and Chiyu on their team, felt like that's kind of hard to do. But I think I'm going to go Alluring Voice, Expanding Force here. Oh, they protect Calyrex. I actually think here you just always go Follow Me, Astral Barrage. Sweet. Yeah, I mean, turn 1 worked out really well for us. There was a good bit that maybe could have been scary, but I think the reality is by going for Flying Terra, like, I'm not really getting KO'd by, I don't know, Fairy Terra, Draining Kiss, Calyrex. 2 turns of Trick Room. Yeah, I think they should be... I guess they protect there because they're like, oh, then I can attack and protect, and they were hoping that I just, like, Moongeist Beam into this, which would be fair. But I'm going to Alluring Voice here. Okay, so hold on. This could still be normal Terra. This game actually is not 100% over. No, but if you're normal Terra, you would have just gone for it last turn, right? So I'm just happy to Alluring Voice here, Moongeist Beam. Okay, they just end up forfeiting. Nice. All right, pretty sweet. That felt good. I think the main play is debating whether or not I should risk that Meteor Beam miss, but I like the idea of getting the special attack boost. I don't know if the special attack boost really matters, honestly, though. I was just like, look, if I get this boost, then it's more valuable into Calyrex in the late game. I probably shouldn't be risking the miss. But basically in my head, I was like, oh, if I miss here, then the next turn I just get a double knockout, and that way you don't get Ogerpon with Calyrex out next to it. But I think Calyrex, yeah, should have just been attacking there rather than going for a protect. So, yeah. Zamazenta, Urshifu, Chien-Pao, Landorus, Raging Bolt, Tornadus. Their team is really fast-paced, so normally what we want to do is just set up Trick Room and then play from there. One of the main debates is whether or not we want to bring Fire Ogerpon into this matchup, because it's good into Zama, but I like Urshifu a lot, because what ends up happening is you use Indeedee Lunala, you sacrifice Indeedee, you set up Trick Room, and then you get Urshifu for free and next to Lunala. And then you can just start clicking Surging Strikes and Moongeist Beam or Expanding Force or Meteor Beam into everything. Fire Ogerpon here is quite powerful offensively into the Chien-Pao, into Urshifu, into Zamazenta. Zama, however, normally is going to be a defensive Terra like Dragon. With Dragon Terra, Fire Ogerpon suddenly is way less effective. And Roaring Moon here you generally shouldn't be bringing because... First of all, you're countered by opposing Tailwind. Moon is really bad into Raging Bolt as well. And the Chien-Pao is really good into us. We also don't do anything into Zamazenta. So, yeah. I think Roaring Moon is the Pokemon that you will probably see the least when utilizing this team. But it's really important to cover for the matchups that the top 5 Pokemon don't do well into, right? So, Shadow Rider is a very good example. But yeah, I think in this matchup... we can just try to go Follow Me, Trick Room turn 1. Ideally, Indeedee faints, Urshifu comes out, and then you utilize Urshifu Lunala and start dishing out massive amounts of damage. Landorus is also very good here. There's a good chance that it's Rain Dance on Tornadus. So that's something to respect. But I actually wouldn't mind Rain Dance because it makes our Sansir Storm accurate, right? So let's see what they go with. Lunala's in their trainer card. That's really funny. Okay. Chien-Pao Zama. Fine by me. I think this should just be Follow Me, Trick Room turn 1. And then bring out Urshifu. Zama into Lunala is interesting because, like, we have Expanding Force or +1 Moongeist Beam after a Meteor Beam. But yeah, I think I'm just going to go Trick Room here. This is where max HP, max defense is really essential on Indeedee as well. And then if you go for a physical type attack, contact move onto Indeedee with the Chien-Pao, Rocky Helmet activates, and then suddenly you're in KO range from Surging Strikes from the Urshifu or a Meteor Beam, which is a really big deal. So Yeah. And the Moongeist Beam should, I think, be a 2-hit knockout onto Zamazenta once we get a +1 boost from Meteor Beam. I could also switch in Landorus here immediately if Indeedee faints on turn 1. I think I generally like Ursh a little bit more because it can attack through protects, which is a really big deal. Yep, they go for Crunch. It does get the knockout onto us, so they're probably going to go for like a Heavy Slam or a Behemoth Bash here. I could have Fairy Terra'd Indeedee, but I don't think Indeedee is like that important. I think what's more important is just getting up Trick Room here. Does end up being Heavy Slam. Now, of course, by the way, I could Water Terra there to take less damage, but then if I Water Terra, you can Body Press me, and that's not good. So now I bring out Urshifu. The idea is your team is fast. Let's start doing damage under Trick Room. See this tearing, surging into this. I could obviously like Meteor Beam into Champao, surging into this, but since you can't really protect right now, they can't change the terrain, so I don't have to worry about Sucker Punch. Part of me is thinking about doubling up into Champao because this would cover for a potential switch in. I really want to get the +1 boost here from Meteor Beam. Okay, I'm going to Meteor Beam Surging here. Cool. They don't protect either. Nice. That's huge. And one thing I'm trying to be cautious of here in this matchup is going for Water Terra with Lunala, because if I go for that Water Terra, then the Raging Bolt just gets to hit me for super effective damage, and that doesn't feel good. I'd rather just take some Heavy Slams. Surging, I wonder if this is half. Probably not. Yeah, a little bit under. But I didn't want to close combat in case they Terra'd. Although it's normally going to be Terra, Dragon, or Grass, and so close combat's actually probably okay there. Body Press into us, that's fine. Not a bad turn. Now we have +1 Lunala with 3 turns of Trick Room, which is pretty good. The main concern here would be if they bring something that's faster than Urshifu under Trick Room, which would be Raging Bolt specifically. The question here is, does Moongeist Beam knock out Zamazenta after that Surging Strikes damage? If not, it may have been more optimal for me to go for close combat, since Urshifu is Focus Sash anyway. The question is, what do you bring out right now? Could be Tornadus, could be Landorus, could be Raging Bolt. If Raging Bolt does not come out here, then I'm guessing they just didn't bring it into the battle. It's Urshifu. Water Urshifu, okay. The problem here is we probably speed tie. That's not great. I think I'm happy to go Water Terra, Moongeist Beam into Zamazenta. Close combat into Ursh. I don't want to click Expanding Force here because Zamazenta could Wide Guard. Expanding Force is really tempting though, honestly. But yeah, the question is, can +1 Moongeist knock out Zama? A lot of Zamas recently have been like max defense, max speed. So if you have no HP special defense investment, that would be huge for us. But I'm also going for Water Terra here preemptively to deal with Urshifu potentially clicking Surging Strikes until the Lunala slot. So Lunala's going to Terra here. They are slower than me under Trick Room, but they did in Wide Guard, which meant I could have just clicked Expanding Force here. I think it's still maybe okay, but wow, they are so slow. What? How is their Urshifu this slow? Nice play. They double up into Lunala as well. Wow. With the body press. I mean, it would have been fine here if we just got the knockout there, but yeah, Urshifu being slower than Lunala under Trick Room is a pretty big surprise because this Lunala essentially has no speed investment. Which means... What is the EV spread on their Urshifu? Also, really nice play to not click wide guard there. What I didn't want to do was expanding force and then have their Urshifu outspeed my Urshifu and just close combat this, right? Because if you wide guard close combat, you win the speed tie. I don't get anything off that turn, which is pretty bad for us. Oh, man. It stings because, like, the Landorus and the Lunala here are not fast. We have no speed investment on either, but we ran into, like, no speed Urshifu. That's actually wild. Wow. And missing that knockout was so bad. They survived with, like, 1 HP. Yeah, just a huge surprise here. We just get demolished by Surging. I am fascinated by that Urshifu EV spread. Like, it's got to basically be no speed Urshifu. Oh, wow. Which is, like, definitely uncommon. And part of the strength of this team is having, like, the, you know, traditionally, like, Landorus is traditionally faster, right? But under Trick Room, it's like, oh, I should be outspeeding most Urshifus. But no, we ran into, like, no speed investment Urshifu. This is a really great example of a game where, like, EV spreads make a really big difference. And also, my opponent made some really good calls, like not wide guarding that turn and just attacking. The 1 HP survival was very unfortunate. But the reality is, like, with Bolt here in the back, they were maybe fine anyway. It may have been better for me to actually have brought Landorus out first into Chien-Pao plus Zama, but Urshifu just felt so strong because it could get guaranteed damage. If I had clicked close combat with Urshifu instead, it would have gotten Zama lower. But even if I did, like, I'm not sure I win this game. Because they have slower Urshifu. My whole game plan was to set up Trick Room and sweep them under Trick Room with slower Landorus, but Urshifu being faster than our team under Trick Room is a complete nightmare, right? Because you just get guaranteed damage into everything. And then Raging Bolt is actually really strong for them as well because it's also potentially pretty slow. So, yeah, this was a game where, like, EV spreads made all the difference. And having a incredibly slow Urshifu caught me off guard because most of the time, I mean, like, you can run, of course, a lot of bulk on Urshifu, but, like, for them to actually be slower than Lunala means that I think they really just had probably no speed investment, and that's a big surprise to me. If you look at their team, it can make sense because, of course, they have Tornadus. So Tornadus obviously can Tailwind, allowing Urshifu to outspeed everything under Tailwind anyway. But that's definitely not a traditional Urshifu EV spread. And that, I would say, single-handedly won my opponent the game. Like, my expectation for that turn was, okay, even if you wide guard, then Moongeist Beam is, I thought, pretty good chance to get a knockout, and Zama just, like, lives on 1 HP, and with the Water Terra, whatever, right? If I win the speed tie, I was thinking we were speed tying between Urshifu, so I was like, okay, then I just get to close combat you, but that was not the case at all. So really, really interesting. Like, I think this, like, Pokemon is a game where, you know, information is a really big deal. And if you train your Pokemon in non-conventional ways, that can really catch your opponent off guard, right? If you look at this team, you have, for example, like near max HP, max defense Ogerpon. That really wasn't standard until San Antonio Regionals when Justin Tang and Shiliang Tang got first and second place, respectively. And they, of course, also use, like, really slow, really bulky Landorus. And so I haven't really run into too many, like, uber slow Urshifus, but yeah, it ends up being a critical piece for my opponent here. I wanted to talk about this game a little bit because I realized that on the turn I lost, I just had a play that was strictly better, and that's just Moongeist Beam into the Urshifu, close combat into Zamazenta. I think in my head, I first of all was worried about Focus Sash on Urshifu, but the reality is even if you're Focus Sash and I bring you down to Sash, like, you are not knocking out both of my Pokemon, right? And then I've got slow Landorus in the back, which can then just Sandsear Storm or Earth Power into everything, and that's really powerful. So first of all, even if it's Sash, I think it's fine. And second of all, it's very unlikely for this Urshifu to be Sash because we just fought a Chien-Pao on this team, and Chien-Pao is normally going to be the Pokemon that carries the Focus Sash. Obviously, that's not 100% the case, but if you kind of just make the classic logical deductions, I think all of that checks out, right? So in this scenario, it really should just be Moongeist Beam and Urshifu close combat here. And even with them being slower and that, like, you get the surging off, well, then I just Moongeist Beam into you, and I potentially just get a one-hit knockout, and then close combat into Zama, also potentially just knock that out, right? And then that would be a double knockout. Raging Bolt's your last one, but it's a 3v1. So I want to quickly show this damage calc, because Moongeist Beam, even against max HP Force Spadef Urshifu, is a guaranteed one-hit knockout. I also just wasn't really sure how powerful +1 Moongeist was, and I kind of just underestimated it here, I think. Now, you could be really specially defensive on this Urshifu, for example, given that they obviously have no EVs in speed. Urshifu and Lunala have the exact same base speed stat, and Lunala has 4 speed EVs on this team, so one can guess that their Urshifu just has 0 speed EVs, or 4 speed EVs and we speed tied, which is really interesting. But point being, maybe the Urshifu has enough bulk to actually survive this attack. If so, then, you know, kudos to them. But I think the reality is, in this scenario, there's really no reason to be not going for Moongeist Beam plus close combat. Like, the world where that doesn't work out is if this is normal Terra Urshifu. Some people actually run that as a Shadow Rider kind of matchup, but I think normal Terra makes very little sense here because you already have a good Shadow Rider matchup with Zamazenta and Chien-Pao. So I think here I just did not make the best play, and it punished me even more heavily because I didn't knock out the Zamazenta, meaning the Lunala just fainted. The reality is, even if I had knocked out Zamazenta, I think the Raging Bolt just comes out, and Raging Bolt might just actually outspeed me under Trick Room, so then suddenly both of my Pokemon just fall against them under Trick Room. If I had Moongeist beamed here, even if Urshifu survives, I would get close combat off into Zama, and that I think should just knock out, right? And then so then you're stuck with either very low HP Urshifu plus Raging Bolt, or Urshifu has just fainted, and I've still got my Landorus in the back. So yeah, I think this turn I just did not make the best play possible, and I think that I didn't fully think things through. So replay analysis is really important in Pokemon, especially in your losses. I think you should be doing these in your wins as well, because you always want to identify turns where you didn't play perfectly. It's really hard to play perfectly in this game, obviously, but the more times you can recognize when you made mistakes, the more you'll be able to correct on them and kind of think about why you made those mistakes, right? And so here, I think I tunnel visioned a little bit. I think also by seeing Urshifu here, I just assumed that they didn't have Raging Bolt. So I was like, oh, if you don't have Raging Bolt, then, you know, I get the knockout onto Zama, Lunala, plus the Landorus should just be able to Expanding Force in the subsequent turns. That was actually what I was thinking as well, where I was like, okay, if I knock out Zama, I can just Expanding Force. But because I committed the Water Terra, they did have Raging Bolt in the back. Even in the world where I knocked this out, I think I probably just lose the game with Lunala plus Landorus because you just Surging Strikes and Thunderbolt, for example. But yeah, always fun to do some replay analysis and point out some errors. Whoa, this is a new take on Zacian. Sorry, not Zacian, Zamazenta. Chien-Pao Zama, which is normally standard with Flutter, but then Torndiddle Ursaluna, which is really like a lot more fast-paced on offensive. Like normally you would see, I would say Shadow Rider on like the Zama slot, but this is honestly just kind of a unique team. Really cool stuff here. A team like this should be fairly weak if Trick Room gets set up. The thing is that Lunala is actually pretty bad into Zama offense-wise with Wide Guard, like Zama plus Chien-Pao, but Expanding Force is really good into a lot of the rest of my opponent's team. The question is what we want to lead with. We could just go Indeedee plus Lunala, honestly, because Indeedee with Fairy Terra is really good. Fairy Terra Rocky Helmet is awesome because if Chien-Pao crunches into us or Throat Chops, they take recoil, it breaks their sash, and then Fairy Terra allows us to resist Body Press as well. So I'm thinking Indeedee Lunala lead. Urshifu with Sash I think is really good here. And it could be Landorus. Like, Landorus is actually a pretty solid bring here. But I think Fire Ogerpon's damage is just so good. The main thing to think about here is Zamazenta going for a defensive Terra, right? So if Zama defensively Terras, then I don't have Landorus to deal, like, neutral damage with Earth Power. But it's still okay. Mainly because Lunala is going to be able to do a lot to a Terra Zama. So, let's see. Chien-Pao Flutter. Okay. Generally works for me. I think they get Icy Wind. I have Meteor Beam. Curious to see if there's a booster on Flutter. Normally there will be. Taunt is normally what Flutter mains are going to want to run here. I think I'm okay just going Follow Me Trick Room turn 1. Yeah. I don't think I need to commit my Terra here. Flutter going for Icy Wind would actually be really clever. Like Icy Wind, Crunch / Throw Drop into Indeedee. But then you give me a free switch into Ursh, and I think we're totally fine from there. Because like I said, I think this kind of team struggles against Trick Room. My one fear here is that Flutter main actually has Trick Room as well. And I think it could, because my opponent's team has Ursaluna. If they have it, so be it. That's an awesome tech. Flutter is going to Terra here. Okay, that is cool. Dark Terra, so double immunity now to Expanding Force. And now this allows them to resist Moongeist Beam. I'm just going to go for Dazzling here. That's fine. And Throat Chop. Okay, I'll take it. This is totally okay with me. The Rocky Helmet is so huge here because now you've committed your Terra. I just get Urshifu out under Trick Room, and I have Urshifu plus the Lunala. The Psychic Terrain being up is a huge deal because it blocks your potential Sucker Punches as well, so I don't even have to Terra the Lunala, honestly. So we could also bring out Ogerpon. The main thing to think about is them potentially copying us with Ditto. I'd rather have them copy Urshifu than Ogerpon. Okay. So I have a pretty free close combat into Flutter Mane here, right? And Meteor Beam into Chien-Pao. The main thing here is that does risk a 10% miss from Meteor Beam, but I don't think Meteor Beam is going to KO this. What else could switch into close combat for my opponent? It's only really going to be that Tornadus. I'm fine clicking close combat here and Meteor Beam personally. And Chien-Pao switches. Beautiful. Okay. It could be Ditto taking in that slot. It is, I think. No, that's Zama? Wait, no, that's Ditto. Yeah, it is Ditto. Okay. The good thing here is they transform before I get a special attack boost, which is nice. And they're going to double switch, but Zama now just eats up a close combat, which is obviously great for us. This is exactly why I want to bring Urshifu into the matchup. Like, under Trick Room, into such a team that has, like, not that much defense, this is just so strong. Did we miss? Well, I guess I'd rather miss here than have missed on to the Chien-Pao. That's fine. I think I can just go close combat into Zama once more. Terra here, Moongeist Beam into Ditto. I assume it's Focus Sash Ditto, though, which actually makes this so much more frustrating. I think without Sash, this game was just over because Urshifu just one-shots everything. But now I presume Ditto will be Sashed. They'll be able to Expanding Force me here. Alright, we get Moongeist Beam off, but let's see. Are you Focus Sashed? Oh, okay. Never mind. We're good. It's probably Scarf Ditto Sash Chien-Pao then. Sash is normally on Chien-Pao. I just thought with that switch that they'd be potentially Sashed there, but Lunala is just, yeah, so strong with the Urshifu under Trick Room here. This team is so fun. Zama faints. Okay. Chien-Pao comes out. Yeah, I mean, there's just, you can't handle Urshifu, right? It just gets a close combat everything. And that's part of the beauty of this team, right? Urshifu supports Lunala so well because Dark-type Pokemon are normally annoying for Lunala, but hey, I can just close combat all of those. So, yeah, I can just go close combat here. We have Ogerpon in the back. There's no way my opponent could ever win this. So, close combat Moongeist Beam. Okay. Oh my gosh, that almost just knocked out. Jeez. And the most overkill close combat you'll ever see into a Dark Terra Flutter Mane with Sword of Rune from Chien-Pao. So, in this matchup, basically, part of the reason why I thought Trick Room was really strong was because my opponent just has really fast Pokemon. Chien-Pao, Flutter Mane, Zamazenta, Tornadus, right? Ditto is like the only Pokemon that is... and Ursaluna, but Ursaluna just like feels kind of difficult to bring. Mainly because of how I can position Urshifu into this game. So, yeah, my only concern in this matchup was really going to be a potential Trick Room on Flutter Mane. And I don't think that's, like, completely crazy. But, yeah, I think here it goes to show we have a lot of bulk to work with. We have a lot of offense to work with as well. So as long as we get the right speed control, we're good. What's really great about this team is that you have Indeedee and Fire Ogerpon to protect that Lunala. And it makes it so much easier to set up that Trick Room. And also allow you to do massive amounts of damage once Trick Room is set up. What are the odds that we're up against a Lunala team for the first game, but it's not the team that won regionals? That is fascinating to me. Okay. Huh. So, like, they could obviously go with their own Trick Room. I think we actually probably want to bring Roaring Moon. I mainly am curious if they have Moonblast or if they're, like, kind of a similar Lunala set. It's probably similar if I had to guess. So it's like Lunala, NDD on their end is something we definitely want to respect. There should be Dark Urshifu, I think, because they have Torkoal on their team. That's my guess. Could even see them leading Ursh. Okay, I think I probably want Roaring Moon. We are Fairy Terra here with Alluring Voice, which can be used into Dark Ursh. I don't think I want Water. Water Ursh does give me Taunt, I suppose. Yeah, I don't feel convinced on it. Okay, Roaring Moon. Ooh, actually, I want to go Ogre, NDD, Lunala. This just gives me a lot of offense. Like, I don't feel very confident leading Lunala here immediately, especially into a Dark Ursh. Dark Urshifu is actually one of the most annoying Pokemon for Lunala to go up against, and that's part of the reason why you've got Rocky Helmet, Fairy Terra, NDD here. With that, like, you can just soak up damage and actually dish out damage in response. It's gonna be Lunala, NDD here, okay. So the Roaring Moon here gives me immunity, obviously, to Expanding Force. Eye Pressure with Knockoff here. Wonder if they just want to set up Trick Room on turn 1. Follow me, Trick Room. Can knock off into NDD. Could switch. I could Terra and an attack. Could double up onto Lunala. My main fear here would be knocking out NDD and then just giving them a free switch in immediately. And they would go into Ursaluna or Torkoal, presumably. I'm actually thinking about clicking knockoff here and just switching into my own Lunala. The logic behind this play is I want to not knock out NDD to deny them a free switch in under Trick Room, and then the following turn I pressure with Expanding Force plus knockoff. Yep, there's Follow Me. Great. Because my guess is they want a Trick Room right now. We don't knock out NDD, which I think is actually beneficial for us. Oh, okay, it's going to be Meteor Beam here. I think that's fine then. I'll definitely be able to survive here. Yep, so they're just going to Meteor Beam into my Lunala. Makes sense. We don't take a ton of damage from that. The thing is now they could threaten with Trick Room. Curious how likely they will go for that. They could always switch an Urshifu here. I don't mind going for Acrobatics. I have no idea how fast they are relative to us. Like, I could just commit Fairy Terra here, or sorry, Water Terra, which I don't think is terrible. The main question is, do I want to Acro or knock off here? NDD probably just goes for Follow Me, but Acro does more damage. Okay, I'm going to Acro Terra Meteor Beam. They are faster. Okay. And they're going to Terra. This is also why I went for Meteor Beam rather than Moongeist Beam, because I figured they'd have to Terra. Oh, it's Terra Grass. Okay, that's great for Roaring Moon. Nice. Also, now this means I can just, like, Tailwind Expanding Force next turn. So, I'm happy with this trade. Having the slower Lunala here is good, because it means if they were to set up Trick Room, my Lunala outpaces you under Trick Room. So, yeah, the speed stats here are really interesting. Great, they follow me. Acrobatics, KOs NDD, cool. So far, I feel okay with how this game is played out. One of the big question marks was going to be the Lunala speed interaction. And this is probably the most stressful part of using this Pokemon. whether or not you actually hit your Meteor Beam. Because you get that special attack boost always, but 90% chance to hit. So it will connect here. Fantastic. And they might be setting up Trick Room since we move first here. Yeah. Okay. Could be Ursaluna, could be Torkoal. It is going to be Ursaluna, that's fine. You would expect Ursaluna to just protect here. It might even be a double protect. I am thinking of clicking Expanding Force here, switching into Indeedee. I could always reverse Trick Room as well, which is really interesting. I just don't know if I ever actually get to accomplish that. And right now, having the faster Lunala and a +1 Expanding Force in terrain is really tempting. I think I actually don't mind going for Knockoff here and Expanding Force. Cool, they just Headlong Rush. I don't know if this KOs us. It does, wow. Okay, it's impressive. But now you eat up an Expanding Force, right? Like, you're at -1 Spadef, I'm at +1 special attack, and yeah, like, based on the Terras, I knew my Lunala was faster here under Trick Room. So the logic behind going for Knockoff there with Roaring Moon, by the way, is my opponent might fear me resetting Trick Room and, like, double up onto my Lunala. I didn't think my Lunala would actually feint to a Headlong Rush without Flame Orb activated, but honestly, I didn't think Ursaluna would get the knockout onto Roaring Moon either. So now I can go out into Ogerpon, or I could go out into Indeedee. Torkoal is presumably their last Pokemon. I think I'd rather go out into Ogre here, because Ogre can Spiky Shield. But it's Urshifu, that's fine. Great. With this, yeah, Ursh really can't beat all three of our Pokemon, so... I think one thing that was huge here was recognizing the Terra and seeing that their Grass Terra went off first before our Water Terra, and so I knew that my Lunala would get this Expanding Force off, and also not just Moongeist Beaming, and then getting that special attack boost. They could have switched in Urshifu for Lunala last turn, but now I can just go for Follow Me here into... I don't even need to Follow Me, actually. I think it's fine to just IV Cudgel here and Moongeist Beam. And we're faster under Trick Room here. So them setting up Trick Room ultimately actually benefited us, which is awesome. That does so much damage. And we actually end up being faster under Trick Room here as well. So beautiful. Yeah, I think that's the awkward thing for them bringing Ursaluna. And actually one of the really cool things from watching this team at Regionals was seeing how Indeedee and Ogerpon can actually counter Ursaluna. Mainly in the sense that they can protect one of your Pokemon from getting just completely blown up by a Facade or a Headlong Rush, which is part of the reason why I brought both of them into this matchup. I think Urshifu is actually bringable as well. It even has Taunt, but I didn't feel like super compelled to bring it because it's obviously so weak to Psychic type damage. And then Landorus, I just felt like didn't do enough damage. I think Landorus is amazing when it can come out and threaten with one-hit knockouts. I didn't feel like that'd be the case in this matchup. But yeah, Lunala getting that double knockout was so satisfying. Okay. Well, I feel like it's always good to feature a game against standard Arubega Miraidon, the world champion winning team. In this matchup, Landorus ends up being potentially the most important Pokemon even. We saw this team defeat a Miraidon team in the semifinals, although that team had Incineroar with Assault Vest as well as Ursaluna. But into Miraidon, you can lead Indeedee Lunala, and then have Landorus and Firepon in the back. Roaring Moon, I really wouldn't recommend for this matchup. Like, I think you only really should be bringing this into Shadow Rider teams a lot of the times, and just in matchups where, like, Acrobatics and Knockoff can threaten one-hit knockouts, but Moon is, like, really bad here because you're threatened by Moonblast from Whimsicott, you're threatened by Tailwind Fairy Terra Dazzling Gleam. I think it's, like, actually bringable in a best of 3, where if, like... you think they are going to go Whimsicott, Miraidon, Tailwind, Fairy Terra Gleam, you can go Roaring Moon, Landorus, and, like, basically Tailwind, like, Flying Terra, Tailwind, and then play the game from there. But I just generally wouldn't recommend it. I think it just makes the game more difficult. And Moon doesn't do enough damage to most Pokemon here. I should say most of the main Pokemon, because it's actually very good, obviously, into Whimsicott and Ogerpon and Urshifu, but it's mainly your matchup into Miraidon that feels so lackluster, where you feel the need to Terra just to get around Dazzling Gleam. You're still always threatened by Draco Meteor. So yeah, it's going to be Whim's Miraidon here. Yep, it's kind of standard. So the cool thing with this lead is we override the terrain immediately. So then it begs the question of what we should do on turn 1. Follow me, Trick Room. It's like pretty safe. Question is, do we really need to do that? Because what I would like to do is actually go for like Trick Room here and Meteor Beam. The idea behind this is we get Lunala to +1 immediately, and then so Expanding Forces in subsequent turns are really, really powerful. I think most of the time the Miraidon's going to want to Volt Switch out here, so we just get to burst whatever is coming in. If I were my opponent, I would be setting up Light Screen with Whimsicott right now. So let's see. And then we still have Landorus in the back, right? Landorus is going to be super, super good in terms of damage for Miraidon. Wow, they're going to commit their Terra here. Okay, can't say I was expecting that. Terra Miraidon right away into Fairy. Okay. Are they just going Dazzling Gleam? Light Screen then? Like, that's totally fine with me. Interesting. Electro Drift. Okay. Yeah, we survived that. Huh. I'm trying to figure out why you would Terra there. I think the Terra makes sense preemptively. Like, I thought they were going to Terra Volt Switch out, so then that way you no longer would become weak to Earth Power from Landorus. But either way, this works out for us. Drift does not get the KO. You get a lot of damage there. Trick Room gets set up. Main thing to note right now is you cannot Encore me. I think I'm down to just Helping Hand and Expanding Force here. Could be Dark Terra Whimsicott, actually, which would be pretty good for my opponent. So, actually, I think it's better to go Follow Me here. Because I don't care about really knocking out Whimsicott here. What's more important is they don't get to just break my Shadow Shield. But, yeah, I think the Fairy Terra here, if you're not going to go for Dazzling Gleam, it doesn't really help. I guess I should change that. And they also can't Terra Whimsicott here, sorry. Terra Dark is a thing, but they already Terra'd on Miraidon. Focus Sash, though, is also a concern of mine here, because some people are running Sash over Overcloak these days. The Japanese players in particular who went to EUIC have been using Sash. But yeah, this is fine, right? Like, now I have just +1 Expanding Force. Who would I rather bring out first? They could bring out Iron Hands, Fire Ogerpon, Urshifu. I think we just go Lando here. Yeah, because we're slow Lando, so it's better under Trick Room here, too. Yep, just Urshifu. Cool. Works for me. 3 turns of Trick Room. I think I'm happy to just Earth Power here, Expanding Force. They should really just protect Urshifu, sack Whimsicott, but I don't think they can deal with all our offense at this point. Honestly, though, even if they conserve their Terra, I'm not sure. Like, turn 1 just worked out so well for us, right? Like, we got a ton of damage off, and I got my boost, just essentially negating the Light Screen. And, yeah, I think Landorus often actually feels like the real restricted Pokemon in this matchup. So, Urshifu is going to detect here, but that's fine. Expanding Force comes out, knocks out Whimsicott, and now we're up 3-2 with multiple turns of Trick Room left. Lunala at +1, and I still have Terra available, so we have way more resources to work with. And the Urshifu just committed Protect. Like, the only chance is if they had Iron Hands and they have Fake Out, but then what we can actually do is just Poison Terra to ground our Landorus. You can Fake Out Landorus right now because it's Flying type, and so it's not grounded, and non-grounded Pokemon are not affected. It is going to be the Hands, it looks like. Cool. So, yeah, what we're going to just do here is Poison Terra and then Earth Power here, Expanding Force. The main thing is I think turn 1 feels a little bit volatile because they theoretically could have gone Moonblast, Electro Drift, double up onto Indeedee, but even if you do that, then I get Meteor Beam off. I'm still at full HP and I get a free switch in, right? So then I can just go out into Fire Ogerpon and now you're locked into Electro Drift. And then we can just play the game from there. So Lando Poison Terras. They actually just offer Heavy Slam instead of Fake Out. Okay. I was hoping to show that cool interaction with Fake Out, but it's not going to be the case. And they, looks like, our Mystic Water on Urshifu, so we just one-shot them there. Cool. Earth Power on 2 hands. I mean, if they were a Mystic on Ursh, then maybe it was actually the Focus Sash on the Whimsicott. But yeah, I think if you're team building in this format, you definitely want to build a team that has a favorable matchup against this team. And yeah, like I just would not go to a tournament without using a team that I thought would give me a decent chance against this team. Because this team is still like one of the strongest teams ever in this format, right? It won the World Championships. It won a regional championships after Worlds. It got top 4 at the European International Championships as well. And so, like, even with it being a known team, it's still winning. But that being said, I think, like, part of why this Lunala team was able to win the regional championships is partially because it has a very good matchup, I think, into these Miraidon teams. And it's genius, right? Because I think Miraidon teams generally aren't very well equipped to deal with NED Lunala, right? That's probably not a matchup that you would have really prepared for. So, yeah, I felt like I was basically in control this entire game. I'm not sure there were really any different moves I would have made. I think it's really mainly that turn 1, because you could always just guarantee Trick Room by going for Follow Me plus, like, Trick Room. But I just figured, like, in order to knock out NED, you need to, like, Electro Drift and Moonblast, or Draco and Moonblast. And if you're doing that, then the Miraidon slot suddenly is significantly weaker. You have no terrain up. You're at either -2 or locked into Electro Drift. And then I get to my +1 boost still, right? And then I still have my shield active as well. And then, yeah, like, then I can just bring out the Fire Ogerpon and play Fire Ogerpon Lunala Landorus with 1 more in the back. But I don't think, like, them conserving their Terra really would have changed the outcome of this battle too much, because I think, like, Urshifu still gets popped by Expanding Force and Earth Power anyway. But, yeah. Whoa. Speaking of size spam, they've got NED Iron Crown with Koraidon as well as Ceruledge, Walking Wake, and Ogerpon. Huh. Okay. I think Landorus Sansir looks incredibly powerful here. Just a little bit worried about missing, but what can you do about that? Thinking Koraidon, NED lead, Landorus, and then probably just Ogerpon. Ogerpon in the sun should be able to do a lot of damage. I think I like it. I don't know if I love Urshifu here. Surging is basically going to be a very weak attack. It's mainly for close combat and taunt, but I don't think I like it enough. And then Roaring Moon here, I think, is... It's actually okay. The problem is it's so threatened by Koraidon. Rock Ogerpon's quite annoying for it as well. Wake is annoying for it as well. I actually think you could totally play with the Roaring Moon here, because it actually gives you an immunity to the size spam from NED plus Crown. And it also threatens with Flying Terra Acrobatics. The main thing I'm worried about is like taking a negative trade with it. So I'm not bringing it in this game, but I actually think you could make a very logical argument for it. So let's see. What is our goal here? We want to probably set up the Trick Room. I think our team functions better under Trick Room. This is very weak to Expanding Force turn 1. I honestly could just go Helping Hand Expanding Force. But I think it's probably still better to just get that Trick Room up here. Yeah, I think, like... How would they even deal with Expanding Force? Protect, switch into Iron Crown or NED, for example. And I think it's like... Follow Me Trick Room here is always fine. Like, I would expect them to maybe Terra Koraidon, Protect. They don't Protect or Terra or Switch. Which meant Follow Me Expanding Force actually would have worked here. But I'm still fine with this. Like, you probably just knock out the NED, yeah, with the double up, but then I get a free switch in, and that's totally okay with me. Oh, it's going to be U-turn. Okay, that makes sense. That's their way to pivot out here. So I think they could go out into their own NED or Iron Crown right now. But that's fine, because now I have Landorus plus Lunala under Trick Room, which is going to be epic. I think that's Crown. Great. Crown hits the field. And both of these are just super fast, so this is exactly why I wanted to set up Trick Room with speed photosynthesis, with Koraidon being naturally fast. I figured this would make sense. I mean, I honestly could just go out into Ogerpon here. Like, the upside of Ogerpon is that it threatens with Cudgel. It's probably Choice Landorus. Sorry, Choiced Koraidon, I'm thinking maybe. The thing with Landorus here is I can just Sandsear and Expanding Force, and there's not really much my opponent can do to punish it. The only downside is I could miss Sandsear, but I could also just Earth Power. I might actually like going to Ogerpon more right now. I think I don't want to be clicking Sandsear. Okay. I'm happy to go Meteor Beam here. And Woodhammer, double up into the Walking Wake. The main reason for this is because I don't really feel threatened by Iron Crown very much right now, and I think getting a special attack boost here is a really big deal in the Lunala as well. I could see Crown protecting or tearing here as well, but with Shadow Shield still active, I feel pretty good into Lunala. Or sorry, I feel pretty good with Lunala, I should say. Because, like, Crown really should feel... Yep, perfect. They switch. Okay, phenomenal. Even if they protect with the Wake here, it's actually still a pretty good turn, in my opinion. They bring out their Ogerpon. Beautiful. They don't protect. So if we don't miss Meteor Beam here, I think we should be in fantastic shape. They still haven't Terra'd, crucially, so that's one thing to pay attention to. But there's Meteor Beam. Nice. We don't miss. Huge. That almost just one-shots. Wow. And we Woodhammer. Perfect. Basically, in this position, I was like, look, Iron Crown, I think, is less of an offensive threat than the Walking Wake, and I think because Crown is so threatened by Ogerpon, it's more likely for that to protect Switch or Terra. Now, Expanding Force looks really powerful, right? And we still have our Terra available, which is fantastic. So I'm happy to Expanding Force here. They might protect Crown, Cudgel, Ogerpon, but they could also double up into Lunala here. How many turns of Trick Room do we have left? 3. I'm actually thinking about Expanding Forcing here and clicking Spiky Shield. I just don't think this threatens me a ton, but I think it's also maybe fine to just Expanding Force here. Cudgel. Okay, we get a Terra out of them, so probably Terra Crown. But if you're Terraing Crown, you're probably now taking neutral damage from Expanding Force. Oh. Okay. Did Ogerpon Spiky Shield? It doesn't. Okay, then this is still a fine trade. Definitely wasn't expecting Dark Terra on the Crown, but the Dark Terra actually makes a ton of sense because Crown otherwise is actually very weak into Calyrex Shadow Rider. So having an immunity into Astral Barrage is a big deal, but I think this is still fine. This mainly would have been a problem if Ogerpon either went for Spiky Shield or if they had gone for, I don't know, like a Terra Blast onto Lunala. Although with Shadow Shield, I don't even think that KOs. Cool. So now they bring out the Koraidon. 2 turns of Trick Room left means I can just go Expanding Force here. Fire, Terra, IB Cudgel. That's a double KO. Yeah, they realized that, I think. Cool. The only way we could potentially lose that would be to a double protect. So 1 in 9 chance. So I don't think my opponent actually should have given up. But if they were indeed Choice Koraidon, which is what I was guessing, then the game is definitely just over, I think. Crown just can't handle all of our Pokemon. So, yeah, I think what was big in this matchup was we just set up Trick Room, and we got really powerful Pokemon under Trick Room, right? One thing that I really love about this team is like Ogerpon offers as redirection and also offers as really good offense, surprisingly under Trick Room. So, Indeedly Lunala often feels like a really consistent lead. The NDD feints, you get a free switch into your Landorus, into your Ogerpon, and then suddenly you have Lunala plus a really powerful attacker. Could be Urshifu out as well, right? Dishing out tons of damage. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much, as always, for joining me. A huge congratulations once again to Behzad for winning Vancouver Regionals with such a creative team. And it was just so awesome to truly get to see Lunala shine finally in this format as a Pokemon that's historically had a lot of success in VGC. So thanks so much, as always, for joining me. My name is CybertronVGC. It feels so good to be back, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.